happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website, dkpco.com.au, or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Sometimes I feel, I don't know.
Buona giornata, buona serata, buona giornata.
There's not really time to relax and take an espresso for Juventus.
You don't forget about you, didn't you? You don't forget about you, didn't you? Attaccare!
Hello and welcome to the Euro Show here on FNR Football Nation Radio. Nick Dabano here on this beautiful Monday evening here in Melbourne. Plenty to get through after a massive weekend of European football all throughout the continent. El Clasico this morning, an incredible 4-0 win for Barcelona. We had PSG. What's going on with them right now? 3-0 loss against Monaco this morning. Further pressure on Mauricio Pochettino and further pressure on them after, that tough Champions League loss about a week and a half ago now. So where to next for the French Giants? And over in Serie A, yes, we know the best league in the world, ladies and gentlemen. Another win for Roma. They're on fire at the moment. They have derby bragging rights. They're back in the race for fourth. 3-0 win this morning. And Tammy Abraham doing what he does best. But another thing we're going to touch on a little bit later on, it is D-Day for a few nations in the coming days as the European World Cup qualifiers reach the round that everyone was in a way dreading. They knew this day was eventually coming after the last round of qualifiers back in November. It's the second round of World Cup qualifiers in UEFA, and do or die for some big nations, including Italy and Portugal. World Cup qualifiers starting on Friday. Myself and my co-host, Josh Parrish, who has just walked into the studio. Josh, we're going to get into all that. A lot to look forward to this weekend, but a lot to look forward to talk about that happened on this weekend. Sorry, we got a bit of a word jumble there,
and a lot to look forward to in international football in the week to come.
Yes, absolutely. It's going to be a massive week, and it was a massive weekend, and that's where we're going to start today, Josh. Let's go back to this morning. El Clasico at the Santiago Bernabeu. Barcelona 4, Real Madrid 0. Is the Xavi revolution, is it finally in full swing? Are we starting to see Barcelona get back to that bit of greatness again? I mean, it's been a tough season, but they're ending this season in an absolute, just amazing run of form right now under their new boss.
Well, there's a reason I'm wearing this cheap Barcelona knockoff. Well, there are two reasons. One, it's the only Barcelona jersey that we have in the studio, unfortunately. If you're listening, Glenn Rolls, send us one, please. But also the other reason is that this is still not quite Barca. This is kind of your Wish.com. It's not quite Wish.com. Maybe
I think Wish.com was start of the season, Barcelona.
Yeah, that was start of the season. Now it's more of a generic brand, but it's
South
not too
Melbourne
bad.
market.
Yeah, maybe, or it could be like an Amazon, second page sort of thing. Not a Prime delivery, not a recommended.
Are we past the Balinese market?
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
Okay.
Well, that was where this was purchased, certainly. Yeah. But it's not quite the Barcelona of old.
Yeah.
But it's still those colours. It's still that badge. It's still a good side, and they've still got one of their legends of the past running things. And I was frankly shocked by the result on the weekend. I was not expecting Barcelona to win, let alone win in such emphatic fashion. But Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang looks like a new man.
Absolutely.
He looks reinvigorated, reborn, however you want to describe it. And I, quite frankly, did not see that coming when they signed him. I didn't anticipate that whatsoever, but it seems as if he's found a new lease of life, new motivation under a new manager and in a different environment. And I'm glad to see him back to his best because he was magnificent to watch, particularly that backheel chopped assist for Ferran Torres. Absolutely unbelievable.
Well, it's 7 goals in 7 games in the league since arriving at Barcelona in January. That's 9 goals and 11 in all competitions if you're including his Europa League form as well. It's been some run for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who a lot of people wrote off at around that midway point of the season. A tough time at Arsenal at the start of the year. Didn't look quite interested. He's now 32. He was on a big contract. Went to Barcelona and he still showed he still has got it. I mean, we remember Aubameyang in his early days at Arsenal, also Borussia Dortmund, what kind of player he can be, and he's reminding everyone of exactly that. But they were just too good in almost every facet today. There was no match for Real Madrid. Some really poor defending for some of the goals as well. Eder Militao, losing his man. Same with David Alaba. Nacho was just penetrated time and time again on that wing from Uzi Dembele. And the Ferran Torres goal as well. Wow. Like, it was originally offside, but the way he timed his run, literally inch perfect. In the end, it was overturned and it was actually paid as a goal. But the cheeky dink over Thibaut Courtois as well, some finish. And this Barcelona team is firing on all cylinders right now in really every facet, from defence into midfield now into the front line. And some of those signings they made in January have really helped stabilise them. And they're in a good run at the moment. I mean, there's every chance this could have been more than 4-0 if it wasn't for Thibaut Courtois bailing them out. Real Madrid, I'll tell you what, ever since winning that game against PSG, they have been stumbling, and another bad loss for them. They might still win the league. They're 9 points clear of Sevilla, but losing 4-0 in the El Clasico will forever be a bit of a black mark in what's been this kind of uncompetitive season for them.
It's interesting. There was some discussion heading into this week as to what was the more important priority. Was it the Europa League game against Galatasaray or the league game against Real Madrid? And usually in a normal season for Barcelona, that would be a very simple question to answer. But in a season like this, where they really have no realistic hope of overhauling that at the top of the table, yes, they need to chase Champions League football, but they don't really have a realistic hope of winning the league. I think my eggs would have been in the Europa League basket to actually win some silverware. But they decided to pretty much play a full-strength lineup for both games, slightly rotated for the Galatasaray game, swapping Adama Traore for... who played instead of Adama Traore? It was Ousmane Dembele. Yeah, correct. Playing Adama Traore instead of Dembele. They started Eric Garcia instead of Ronald Araujo in the back line. So there were only a couple of tweaks, but they've managed to get a lot out of this squad playing a short turnaround. And I think that's pretty impressive.
Absolutely. And I mean, right now, Barcelona have gone from being right out of contention for Europe to right now being within only touching distance of second. They play Sevilla next and they're only 3 points behind them. They win that and they do jump them on goal difference. It's an amazing turnaround on the Xavi. They're firing. They're, as you said, they're into the next round of the Europa League as well, playing Eintracht Frankfurt in the quarterfinals. And after this international break, I mean, this run home for them is actually quite favourable. Got some tough games in there still against Real Betis and Real Sociedad, but no more games against Real Madrid, none against Atleti, who are also now starting to find some form at the moment. So right now, I mean, it is a bit too late for them to win the league and, go on a late, incredible title push. But it's going to be exciting to see how they continue to develop over the next few months. I mean, you can only imagine at the end of this season, they'll continue to shave the wage budget, look to offload players to try and balance the books a little bit. But some of the signings they've made, especially in January, have all paid off. So it looks like they're starting to at least get back on track. And it really is the start of a new revolution, a new era at Barcelona right now.
It's interesting you say that, because up until recently, until the... salary cap rules for La Liga were clarified recently, Barcelona and Juan Laporta were increasingly bullish about their prospects of signing Erling Haaland.
Yeah.
Which anyone with half a brain can realise that they just don't have the money for. They can't afford to do it. With the debt that they're in, it's just not going to happen. And yes, there are some caveats for clubs in their position, such as if you offload certain wages, you're able to reinvest a portion of that in signings, even if you're over the salary cap.
Yeah.
Because La Liga didn't want to completely hamstring teams that are over budget and have no way of getting out from under it in one transfer window. They didn't want to prevent them from signing anyone, and they did want to reward teams who were showing that they were starting to chip away and starting to move towards balanced books.
Yeah.
But there's just no way, even with the Messi salary going off their wage books, there's just no way that they could afford Haaland with the transfer fee and with the monstrous wages that would entail. They've arguably used it up on Sergio Aguero, who's sadly had to retire, on Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang,
Memphis Depay, on
Ferran Torres, who didn't come cheap, of course. Yep. So the portion of the Messi wages that they were able to reinvest, because remember, they did not get a transfer fee for him, and they're only able to reinvest, I think, 50% of that salary. That's not going to cover Haaland, unfortunately.
No.
Not even close. So I don't think they're going to be able to make the kinds of signings that we're accustomed to seeing from Barcelona in eras past. But that doesn't mean this result isn't a positive. This is a massive, massive positive for them. Is it a turning point? Does it change the balance in La Liga? I don't think it does. Was this also a result of Carlo Ancelotti making some very strange selection decisions? I think also
Absolutely.
Yes. But yeah, I do think it's a big day for Barcelona and for their fans to feel some self-worth once again.
Well, I can say from a team wearing the jersey of another team who have gone through some tough years before, the last couple of years in Milan, winning a derby despite how bad of a season you're having and how underwhelming of a season you're having, and just beating a big rival, whether it was beating Inter or beating Juventus or even beating Napoli or Roma, there's a real sense of satisfaction with that. It is, like you can have such a bad season, but you've got that little bit of bragging rights. It certainly goes a long way. But in terms of Real Madrid, Josh, they were without Karim Benzema, who was injured. They went with Valverde as a bit of a false nine. That goes to show the faith that they have in Luka Jovic, who we've spoken about. Just completely frozen out. It's time to go, Luka. This experiment has failed completely. But it's been a weird end to the season for Real Madrid because, they were 20 minutes away from Champions League elimination. They went on a incredible, run in that second leg against PSG, and then, they've built this lead in a really uncompetitive La Liga season. Right now, it does feel like that they're going to kind of just scrape their way over the line because it doesn't feel like there's going to be much competition going through or coming up in the next few weeks. It's not like Sevilla really, banging down the doors. They dropped points again on the weekend, had a chance to at least make it a little bit more interesting. It's a really underwhelming campaign, I think, for Real Madrid, at least from a league standpoint, despite the fact they've won it. I still think it's been a bit like, cool. It's like PSG winning Ligue 1. Like, cool. Yeah, you've done it again. But like,
it's the two sweetest words in the English language.
Default.
That's how Real Madrid have won this. They've outlasted the competition. It's interesting. I saw a table that was basically a La Liga table, but only for first halves. So you only take the first 45 minutes. And Real Betis were top.
Wow.
And Sevilla were 6th or 7th. So I think Sevilla, in what was an opportunity for them to win the league, have been a little complacent at the starts of games. They've got this system. They rely on it heavily. They're good defensively, of course. Only 19 goals conceded in 29 games, which is outstanding. Best defense in the league by a mile. But they haven't been able to score enough goals. They're second in the league with only 40 goals compared to Real Madrid's 59 and Barcelona's 56. It's just not really good enough. And there seems to be, when I watch them play, a real patience, which can be a virtue, of course, as we know. But I think sometimes they're too reliant on the system working and the fact that the chance will eventually come. And too often this season they've drawn a blank and haven't been able to break teams down and have relied on late goals to snatch results, even snatch draws when they should be winning games. And they were in a really good position after January. They got their players back from AFCON. Of course, they have a couple of North African players in the team who they missed. And they got through that period really well. And now they've got their first choice team back and they just keep drawing games.
And there is a reliance on a bit of individual brilliance in those games as well. Someone to bail them out. One in particular is someone like Papu Gomez, who they did miss this morning. They brought in Anthony Martial in January as well. Just trying to get his stats up right now. But
I don't think he's made much.
I don't think it's really changed much for them. They also brought in Jesus Corona from Porto. I don't think he's had the impact they'd been hoping for. They're still also very reliant on Ivan Rakitic in midfield, but I mean, he's getting older, as we've seen with Luka Modric with Real Madrid.
They have one all-action player who plays at 1,000,000 miles an hour, which is Lucas Ocampos.
Yeah.
But
almost he goes too fast sometimes.
Yeah. He's almost
too quick for his own, it's like his brain doesn't follow his feet
sometimes. It's such
sometimes.
a contrast to all the other players in the team who
they have
play at a more
Suso
relaxed,
on their books, who is
more
like the
relaxed
most
pace.
nonchalant winger I've ever seen play the game of football.
But Ocampos, if he doesn't score, they're in trouble because he has a habit of missing a lot of chances. He gets into great positions, but as you say, 1,000,000 miles an hour doesn't always convert and hasn't been the most reliable. And they thought Anthony Martial would provide that composure up front, but he just hasn't been. The chances haven't really been falling to him.
No, not at all. Not at all. Well, going forwards, we mentioned Barcelona and Sevilla, first game out of the international break. That is going to be a massive contest because Barcelona do win. Well, they go to second. So from about 6th or 7th on the table where they were when Ronald Koeman was sacked, all the way up to second. It's quite a good end to the season for Barcelona nonetheless. The other team to keep an eye on in La Liga, who has been in a red-hot run of form, is Atletico Madrid. 1-0 win against Vallecano on the weekend. Koke with the goal in that one. They're riding some form. I mean, they have gotten through past... We saw Diego Simeone showered with plastic cups and all sorts after the Manchester United win in midweek. But they are running a good run in the league as well. I think now that this is just doing a bit of quick maths, that is 5 straight wins in a row in the league, including wins against Real Betis and as well as mentioned against Celta Vigo and Rayo Vallecano, but also some good results against Manchester United as well in the quarterfinals. After really only scraping through that group in the Champions League as well. I mean, Porto looked like they were going through. There was a period where it was like maybe Milan will snatch it in the last game, but in the end, Madrid have timed their run pretty well after, again, what has been, for the most part, another underwhelming season. But they're also 3 points off the pace of second too.
Yeah, it's been a weird year in La Liga, to be honest.
Very strange.
And, it's weird every time it's not the Barcelona-Real Madrid duopoly in force. I do want to dig into some of the selection decisions that Ancelotti made this morning.
You want to go back to our Clasico?
I think I do. I think I need to go, micro before we go macro here, if you like.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because there are certain players, as you mentioned, that just don't get a look in.
Yeah.
And you look at the... Excuse me. You look at, as I nearly sneeze into the microphone, look at Nacho playing left back, for example.
Yeah.
Can David Alaba remember how to play there?
Well, let's have a look who else could have filled in. Well, they had Marcelo on the bench as well.
Yeah, well, Marcelo's been washed for a little while.
I know.
Let's not get carried away.
I mean, their centre-back depth is not great. It's quite lacking. I think that's the argument against.
But Nacho playing centre-back is his more natural role. Yes, he's a sort of utility Mr. Fix-It across the back line, but left-back is undoubtedly his weakest of the slots along that defence. And David Alaba played left-back as one of the best in the world for years and years and years. And I can understand not wanting to break up your central defensive partnership, but when Nacho is getting torched time and time again by Dembele and by Aubameyang when he drifted over to that flank, surely you have to make a change.
Yes.
Surely you have to swap those two.
But also, I think more baffling as well, not even with their defensive partnership, Josh, is when are they going to finally hand the keys to Eduardo Camavinga? Because it seems like every single time he plays well, but there is this over-reliance on that same three. I mean, we're not doubting the brilliance of Luka Modric. We're not doubting, what Toni Kroos and Casemiro have done over such a prolonged period of time. But Eduardo Camavinga is arguably one of the most promising, not arguably, is one of the most promising young talents in world football right now. I mean, he's already among the best central midfielders in the world, and he's 19 years of age, 20 years of age. He's still so young. Like, we saw what he did, how he changed the game against PSG with just his all-action sort of style in midfield. Surely it's going to get to a stage when they've just got to give him the keys. Like, don't give him the car for a test drive. Actually let him take it out and let him, own the car. Like, this guy can give him so much more, give him a bit more drive. And, going without a recognised striker this morning as well, I mean, like what is that? Like, what are they trying to do there? I mean, I know Luka Jovic hasn't done much, but going with a false nine in this sort of game, it's a bold strategy. It really is.
And it did not pay off, Cotton. Look, I do think it's emblematic of just how little trust Real Madrid have in Luka Jovic, and just how much of a waste of money he's been, that when they don't have Benzema, there is no other striker. And you'd think, one of Rodrigo or Vinny Jr. could fill in there. They prefer to be facing goal, of course.
Yeah.
But, Jovic is the only backup striker, really, unless you're going to play Eden Hazard as a false nine, which Chelsea have done, and he can play there.
Remember, Hazard is not the same player as he once was.
Hazard has been a massive disappointment as well on the level of Jovic. It disappoints me that Carlo Ancelotti couldn't find faith in one of those two players and give them an opportunity in this game when it was clear that they needed somebody of that profile in the team. But you mentioned the midfield three and Camavinga not getting enough minutes. I can understand why that's the case, because Ancelotti is trusting his experienced players, and arguably the Modric, Kroos, Casemiro combination has been the best midfield three of the last decade.
Sure, but Toni Kroos is now getting to that stage of his career where he's being dragged.
They're still so good though. They still played. They still played PSG off the park. You think about the rest of the season, and there should have been more rotation. I agree with that on a week-to-week basis. But against Barcelona, Carlo Ancelotti's going to revert to the tried and trusted and play Casemiro, Kroos, Modric. I would love to see more of Camavinga, but I think he's just going to have to wait his turn, unfortunately.
Well, Josh, as we mentioned about Camavinga changed the game again in that PSG game, he did come on for Toni Kroos and gave him something extra. And I think they tried to replicate that by bringing him on at halftime. But I just want to see more of him, because I feel like what we've seen from such a small sample size, or at least not even a small sample size, just from a relative body of work prior to Real Madrid and since arriving at Real Madrid, is the guy can play football and he needs to play more. I just think, it's going to get to a stage when it's like that Malcolm in the Middle clip. The future is now, old man. Like, I'm not doubting how good Toni Kroos is. I'm not doubting how good Casemiro or Luka Modric is. I just think you're going to have to get to a stage where it's like, all right, maybe we could better utilize Toni Kroos in a better role. Maybe, as you mentioned, it's just a little bit more rotation. So we're not getting to March now and Toni Kroos is absolutely spent, or Luka Modric isn't absolutely spent because they've played so much football this season. Maybe there just needs to be a little bit more rotation.
I actually was wrong to say that there were no other striking options, because Mariano Diaz did come off the bench. I don't think he's quite Real Madrid caliber.
No.
But he's good in the air. He works hard. He's kind of a pressing forward. And, you've also got Marco Asensio, who's not a 9. I know that. But he's such a good finisher. He's amazing on his left foot.
Yeah, sure.
So, he would have been another option. I'm always super impressed with Asensio. I know Real Madrid fans don't like him that much. They think he's overrated. I still think if he was to spread his wings and leave and go somewhere else, you would see the best of him.
Well, there are a lot of players, I think, in this Real Madrid team that probably need to look to make a move at the end of the season. Like, there are a lot of players there that they can shave off the wage budget, but also, can just, a lot of these guys as well, it's not like they're young players, but they're at the stage of their career now where they're getting towards that, just past their prime, getting towards the other side of the hill, but can still do a job at a decent club.
Isco.
That was the first name I was going to mention. Isco now at 29. He's barely seen much football at all this season. He's only played 11 games in La Liga, but hasn't seen a minute since the start of February. He's just been sitting on the bench collecting a paycheck almost. Gareth Bale, another one who's just enjoying the golf course a little bit too much at the moment. I'm looking at guys like Dani Ceballos, Luka Jovic, Eden Hazard, even Marco Asensio. I know that, Asensio is still seeing minutes, but I would love to see him make a move somewhere else and really take that next step and spread his wings as a permanent starter somewhere. I reckon he could really flourish. And there's another one as well who's actually not in the Madrid squad right now, but I think should also be looking to make that move permanent, is Brahim Diaz. Brahim Diaz on a 2-year loan deal at Milan. There's not really a slot for him to come back in, because he's going to come back into a really crowded squad. I think that Real Madrid should be looking, all right, they need to also have a contingency plan in place, because Karim Benzema's 34. They need a new striker. That striker that they're probably going to want is Erling Haaland, right? They're going to need
Kylian Mbappe playing through the middle.
Well, that's also going to be coming on a free transfer. But they're probably going to want to go full Galacticos. I wouldn't be surprised they try playing Mbappe as a winger as well, and try playing Mbappe and Benzema in the same lineup. But I reckon as well there's some sort of plan to bring Erling Haaland in as, like, when Benzema decides this is it, we've got Haaland that can come in and be that, proper number 9.
It's interesting because I don't think they can necessarily afford both players.
Haaland and Mbappe?
Yeah, because they're going to be two of the best paid players in the world. And the salary cap rules will continue in La Liga next season. So I think Real Madrid, unless they really have a clear out of these peripheral guys who won't necessarily be getting too many offers from elsewhere that will match the wages they're on at Real Madrid, I think they're going to struggle to get Haaland and Mbappe in the same window. But I think there is one team who is much more likely to secure the services of Haaland, and that's Manchester City. And for them, the money is no object, as we know. So, they've got the biggest turnover out of like any team in the world. How they get that money and where those sponsorships actually come from is a subject for another podcast.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think Erling Haaland is going to Manchester City, or is more likely to go to Manchester City, considering Mbappe seems set on Real Madrid.
Let's have a look. At the end of this season, there are a few players coming out of contract. Marcelo is one of them. I mean, it's probably time for him to make that move. He's been there literally his entire career. Probably maybe a move to the MLS or something on those
Miami.
lines for Marcelo.
Can you imagine Marcelo in Miami?
Mate, he'd be loving life in Miami. Anywhere, like it's such a like LA Galaxy or Inter Miami or New York City FC kind of signing. But I reckon
he might go back to Brazil.
Maybe that's also another option for him. So Luka Modric is also out of contract. I mean, I can see him sticking around for another season. I reckon he's got one more year left in Real Madrid. There's been no indication that he wants to leave or wants to go play somewhere else. I mean, the move, I think that, sort of pulling on the heartstrings is maybe a move back to Croatia, for a season towards the end of his career. To him to go back to Dinamo.
I think Luka Modric is retiring as a Real Madrid player.
You think so?
I think he's going to be given the hero send-off.
I could see him playing one more season somewhere else.
Yeah,
doing
maybe
what most others do, maybe
who said anything about one,
I mean, he's 37 this year.
So, I mean,
he could maybe go 2, 3, 4 more years. Who knows?
Well, even washed Luka Modric is one of the best players in the world, as we saw in the Champions League.
Would love to have him here. Would love to, as would someone else that we know very well.
It's not going to happen, let's be honest.
No, I know.
He's going to prolong his career as long as he needs to so that he can play for the Croatian national team.
Well, you think he'd probably have his eyes on not just Qatar, but maybe 2024 if he could really push it for
the Euros.
Yeah.
I mean, this is probably the last dance with Croatia, but I think given how well he's playing this season, maybe he's reconsidering that. So even if he's used in a bit part role at Real Madrid over the next few years, he doesn't have to start every week. Still worth keeping on the books, in my opinion.
The other two that are out of contract, Isco, I think that he's done. I think that whoever picks him up on a free transfer, I reckon that would be a really good signing for maybe a team like a...
Depends on his body, depends on the situation, what he's asked to do. But
well, I think I honestly, though, as much as I'd love to see him stay in Europe, he does reek of an MLS signing. Like he really does reek of an MLS signing, big money MLS signing.
Could be even be Middle East kind of.
Yeah. Look, I would love to see him. I say this all the time, but I'd love to see him in Serie A. There's been a long link between him and Milan for a very, very long time. Milan do need a 10. I don't think they will sign him with who they're looking at getting, but I would love to see him potentially prolong his career with a couple years in Serie A. I don't know who would fit.
I mean, aren't Milan trying to press a little bit more, play a little bit more of a modern style?
Yes, that's probably why Milan would probably avoid it, and they are looking at...
Because he is a classic playmaker in a mould that doesn't often get a run these days.
I think the Brahim Diaz deal is more important and more poignant for them because he does fit that mould, and I think they are looking at bringing back Pobega as well, who does fit that sort of role as a 10. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe, I don't know, maybe Juve might look at him. I would be surprised.
In a way, this whole conversation is premature, Nick, because they were going to win the league. They're still in the Champions League. This is one game against Barcelona that went awry. And Benzema was not available. And when Benzema's in the team, it's a completely different equation.
But do they still...
When Mendy is available, different.
So you're saying they win that game if they're available?
Yeah, probably.
I don't think so.
If they have their first choice team, I'm not sure that Barcelona...
I don't know if Karim Benzema counteracts their defensive frailties, though.
Yeah, but if you have the ball and if you can keep it because Benzema is providing that pivot up front,
maybe.
And if you don't have Nacho getting torched every time down that flank, if Ferland Mendy is playing, if you've got your first choice team, I think it evens up considerably.
It evens up, but I still think Barcelona win this game.
I don't know. It's a difficult counterfactual. I think it's a completely different. Like the game is played in an entirely different way.
Yeah.
So I think it's hard to say one way or another. But given you look at the table, like the table doesn't lie. So Real Madrid are still, in the aggregate, a much more consistent, much better team than Barcelona. And 1-4-0 result doesn't change that.
Good point, Josh. Fair enough.
Don't get too carried away.
We'll give you that
before
one.
the vultures come looking at the transfer market.
Yes, absolutely.
Out of contract
I was just
page.
going to say the other one that's out of contract is Gareth Bale. So finally he'll be set free after a decade. God knows where he goes, but he'll be whoever has the best goal course. Set
free. You know, they would have gladly mutually terminated his contract if he wanted to leave. So.
Well, I mean, whoever he goes next will just be whoever has the best golf course in that certain city, and it might actually, again, that probably be MLS for him. Maybe go and just be as close to Augusta as possible.
Perhaps. Maybe he could play for like a Welsh team.
In the Welsh Premier League?
No,
or like Swansea or Cardiff or something?
Exactly.
Well, Swansea, go play with the bootlegger.
Yeah, because as we remember from the famous poster, it was Wales, Golf, Madrid in that order. And Wales comes first, so...
Yeah, but like...
Maybe he could be like Hal Robson-Kanu and play for the national team without having a club side.
You know what? It wouldn't surprise me with Gareth Bale. Nothing surprises me with him. So, you know what? Look,
it would surprise me a little bit.
If Swansea were in the running to get promoted, I don't know where Cardiff are, but I know Swansea definitely aren't. I would say, okay, maybe, but maybe a return to Southampton.
Ooh, interesting.
I mean, he's done the move back to Spurs, and it didn't get made permanent. But why not go back to Southampton?
Why ever not?
Run it back. Bring them all back. But anyways, Josh, let's take a quick break here. And we come back, let's talk a bit of PSG. They were spanked last night 3-0 by Monaco. Another team as well in terms of on the way to the title, but have a little bit of issues to sort out, and potentially Mauricio Pochettino might be on the way out, but he might not be the only one who's joining him out the exit door. And I'm not talking about a player by the name of Kylian Mbappe. And then we'll talk a little bit of Serie A as well and look ahead to the Euro qualifiers. Back in just a second here on the Euro Show.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Sometimes I feel, I don't know.
Buona giornata, buona serata, buona giornata.
There's not really time to relax and take an espresso for Juventus.
You thought I forgot about you, didn't you? You thought I forgot about you, didn't you? Attaccare!
Welcome back to the Euro Show here on FNR Football Nation Radio. Nick Tabano and Josh Parrish here. Talked all things El Clasico earlier on in the show. If you missed any of it, make sure you head over to our podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, wherever you might get it. Leave a review, leave a comment. Let us know what you'd like us to talk about next Monday. We have some exciting news coming about a certain other Monday program, so keep your eye to the FNR socials over the next few days. Now let's move on to Ligue 1, another team, another big giant of European football going down last night, or well, technically this morning. Monaco 3, PSG 0, a double from Wissam Ben Yedder and Kevin Volland on the score sheet for Monaco on the day. Another loss for PSG, more pressure falling upon Mauricio Pochettino at the moment, who, well, despite the fact that PSG are, waltzing to another Ligue 1 title, surprise, surprise, with a 12-point lead above Marseille, they are in a bit of a rocky bit of form at the moment, PSG. Out of the Champions League, not necessarily playing too well. Bit of disharmony in the squad at the moment. Things are starting to fall apart for the giants of French football.
Yeah, not shocked after that Champions League result, which their whole season builds towards. And it's set into a pretty familiar pattern now that PSG will choke in the biggest match of the season and then everything will fall apart behind the scenes. And it eventually happened with Thomas Tuchel in the Champions League final, of course, but there was a good run. He managed to keep the morale up and the team together. I think that was a mark of how successful he was as a manager, even if they did play some pretty horrendous football at times with the three defensive midfielders in one, three anchors to cover for their lazy forward players. But yeah, it was interesting to see it so starkly in this match. I mean, Monaco are a decent side, but they're not the team they used to be. So this is a significant margin to lose by against, a team that PSG would generally be expected to roll comfortably. So, yeah, I'm not sure if Mauricio Pochettino is long for the job.
Well, they were having this discussion on the ESPN FC pod. I was giving a listen on the way in, and they were saying a bit of an interesting theory about Poch. Gab Marcotti was actually talking about it, and he said that he feels like, with Tottenham, he got it so well because he had, a whole squad of players who were willing to run through a brick wall for him, and he had a bunch of blue-collar, workman-like players that arguably they overperformed with the squad that he had. But at PSG, this is a team of players that aren't always like that. A lot of players who you have to play to their egos. You're not going to tell Messi, Neymar and Mbappe to drop back and defend while, players like Heung-min Son and Harry Kane are going to bust their ass off every single week. And, this is a very, very different side. Mauricio Pochettino, I mean, is he the manager to manage these sort of stars? There aren't many in world football who can. I mean, probably the best manager who did do that was Carlo Ancelotti when he had Ronaldo in, that Real Madrid period. I mean, there's not many that have been able to successfully do it. But I wonder, with each of these passing few weeks, do these losses, do these failures under Mauricio Pochettino potentially damage his own stocks going forward? I mean, he's constantly linked to the Manchester United job. Does that look down upon him because he's going to be going to a Manchester United team, which, well, they're full of egos as well. And they've arguably got the biggest one in world football leading the line for him right now. So what does this mean for Poch going forward? I mean, I doubt he'll be the PSG manager next season, but can you see him coaching Manchester United? Can you see him, really coaching another big team again?
It's interesting that you bring up that explanation. I think it's been voiced by a number of pundits this season. It's certainly something I've bought into about Poch and the kind of football he likes to play and the background that he comes from in terms of Espanyol, which is like the ultimate working class kind of agricultural team. Southampton, as to a certain extent, the same, and Tottenham, he managed to get buy-in from a lot of players who did grunt work. Like Eric Dyer and Moussa Dembele, for example, like real hard workers who covered ground, and died for the shirt essentially. So, as you say, that is an excuse, a built-in excuse for him to fail at PSG, but it does not strengthen his case to manage Manchester United. At least not this Manchester United, unless they're planning on a massive clear out. Because everything that hangs over Manchester United is in the shape of Cristiano Ronaldo. Who pretty much sums everything that is wrong with PSG in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, look, with PSG, they've also got a big question to ask about Leonardo. I mean, Leonardo has made all these signings and he's tried to assemble this super team, which, I mean, winning Ligue 1 for PSG is just customary. Like, they're going to win it. Like, they can put out their second team and probably win it. But the interesting thing is, do they need to change their transfer strategy? Do they need to change their strategy altogether? Because there are a lot of unhappy PSG fans right now that are seeing this team, winning the league, but we're not getting the ultimate glory, and that's winning the Champions League. This is a PSG team that have the backyard of Paris who have so many talented players that come through their ranks, but, you know, they end up selling for a profit so they can bring in the bigger name NRI signings, like, you know, going after Messi, if Achraf Hakimi's available, you're going to sign him, but signing a guy like Gini Wijnaldum as well, whilst they let guys like Nkunku and Mike Mignon, etc., slip through the cracks. What do PSG need to look a little bit more towards development? I mean, can they find a bit of a balance in there? Like, can they potentially look to offload these veterans? Because it's like they're trying to assemble sort of they have like a bit of a Brooklyn Nets, LA Lakers strategy of trying to sign all these gun veterans who are going to let them win now, but it's not working for them. At least this squad is completely imbalanced and they're not all buying into the same strategy. I mean, even Gianluigi Donnarumma is having an absolute mare of PSG at the moment. You know, the penalty, it flew in off his hand. And that's usually Donnarumma's bread and butter. His confidence looks completely shot at the moment. So I just don't know if things are really moving in the same way. And I don't know if Leonardo's strategy is really working because we know he butts heads with everyone wherever he goes. It's been the same with him at PSG and Milan. Whether this will continue, I don't know if it's really good for PSG's long-term health, but we know with them everything's short-term. And whoever takes over next season, if you've got that lingering shadow of Leonardo, you know that you're going to be finding yourself hamstrung in how you go moving forward heading into next season.
Well, does the PSG hierarchy begin to question Leonardo at this point?
Well, I think Leonardo needs to be moved on.
You know, if it's not the manager, then
it's the technical director.
Exactly. So
I think it's time for Leonardo to go.
The other interesting point about this is how much longer is Qatar really interested in having PSG as their flagship?
Well, I mean, the guy who's the front for PSG is the one who's in charge of all the broadcasting rights of beIN Sports. I mean, he's got such a big say. They almost have a bigger say in sort of the European football landscape right now than they do about actually, you know, I think they care more about that than actually PSG as a product. Would you be surprised if they sell?
I wouldn't be hugely surprised if we saw a decreased level of interest and investment from the ownership.
And maybe selling portion of the club?
Post Qatar 2022, because this is essentially a sports washing project to legitimise Qatar. They've also done it through club sponsorships. You know, the fake Barcelona kit I was wearing before the break had
the Qatar Foundation.
Yeah, Qatar Foundation on the front. So they've done it with using sports people in their advertising. If you go to Qatar Airport, they had the Barcelona and PSG players everywhere, all over the airport. You know, massive floor-to-ceiling banners. So it's part of legitimizing Qatar as a destination for the World Cup and all the, you know, political influence and kudos that comes with that. Once the tournament is actually staged, you know, we've seen with Russia, you know, they've got what they needed out of FIFA. They don't really care that they've been kicked out now. You know, with Qatar, I don't know how much longer they'll really be that interested in supporting this incredibly expensive project. Does this thing have a deadline? Do we see PSG actually drop off the radar in terms of the super clubs? I'm not sure, but it would be... So
maybe going back to pre-Qatar ownership PSG.
It could be, you know, that actually could be quite appealing to some of their supporters.
Yeah.
You know, because PSG, for all the bad rep they get as this sort of concocted thing that, you know, they've got a massive budget and they just roll over all the smaller teams in Ligue 1, you know, from this foreign money. They have amazing supporters. The Ultras are seriously passionate about their club, and I think a lot of them feel that it's been stolen from them. Yeah. You would feel that way.
Absolutely.
So maybe this is in the better long-term interest of the actual community institution that is Paris Saint-Germain if the Qatari ownership steps away, even if it means less silverware.
Isn't it funny now how it just seems like in world football we're starting to see a bit of a shift back, like with some of these teams like Abramovich out of Chelsea, like, you know, starting to like Chelsea potentially having to take a completely different route, going back almost to their roots, whoever they get bought by. PSG, if you know, if your theory stands up and they go back to their roots as well and go back to being a Parisian club, essentially being, you know, we're Paris, we're not Qatar Paris. We're just Paris. We represent Paris.
And even the Saint-Germain region
of Paris as well. Obviously,
because
Paris being a massive
it's
city.
interesting that the ownership doesn't like you referring to Paris Saint-Germain. They've reduced it to PSG a lot of the time, and they even thought about changing the name to Paris FC. No, never mind the actual team in the lower leagues is called Paris FC.
Yeah.
I'm sure they would have settled out of court on that one. But they prefer to refer to Paris because that's the international destination with all the movie stars and fashion models and et cetera, et cetera,
Air Jordan brands, etc.
Exactly. But Saint-Germain doesn't mean anything to an international audience, and therefore they've tried to basically shrink that part of the club's identity, which is actually, an arrondissement in Paris. It's a very specific area.
Yeah.
So it's a borough essentially. I would love to see them go back to their roots, I suppose. I don't know whether you can undo this. I don't know whether these contracts will expire and they'll just it might be a slow ebbing away of power and money and influence, because they've been essentially bad for world football in a lot of ways, more so than just the money coming from a questionable source, but also the inflationary impact of their spending, which has forced a lot of clubs around Europe into crazy spending that has jeopardized their future. See Barcelona, for example, and what they did with the Neymar money and how they got into massive debt after that. See all the clubs trying to keep up with the Joneses, essentially, and the precedent that it's set for states, essentially, to buy clubs like Newcastle United. And not just, wealthy oligarchs like Abramovich, which are proxies for the state. I think they've been a profoundly bad influence on world football. So I would love to see the gap between the rich and the poor shrink, and this inflationary pressure of PSG's spending stopping goading the traditional powers into matching them, and then the gap therefore growing underneath them while these super clubs get into bigger and bigger debt.
We've always spoken about equalisation in football, but do we really see that happening? If anything, I mean, it does feel like the richer are getting richer and the poorer are getting poorer, especially during COVID. I mean, how many teams in England especially went under? We saw a situation with Wigan, a situation like that can happen to anybody. The poorer, getting screwed over by COVID, richer clubs getting richer. It's just going to keep happening. And especially it happens a lot in Italy as well. We've had situations of ownership in Italy where you've had Salernitana, who were days away from going bankrupt because they were owned by the same guy who owns Lazio. And, you have these owners that are like, I don't want to get rid of my assets. I want to try and hold onto my assets because it makes them obviously more cash. It just feels like, and obviously that money, we think that money's gone back into Lazio because Lazio is the prized possession of Claudio Latito in that situation. He was getting richer, Lazio getting richer, even though it was, a little bit dodgy. It's like what we've seen with the Pozzos with Udinese and Watford and Granada. So I don't know. Look, we can go on all day about all this sort of stuff and what the true meaning of, what the true, I guess, intentions are for, the PSG owners and the Manchester City owners and the Newcastle owners.
Maybe it's like having an NFL franchise. Maybe it gives them prestige worldwide and they want to hold on to that. But it seemed like a very specific state-backed mission to take over PSG in preparation for this tournament that's going to show off Qatar to the world, essentially.
Well,
and got a few after months. That's done, I don't know. Maybe they're going to keep on trying to host big events. Maybe they'll move on and try and host the Olympics or something.
Well, when you think about it, it does make sense, especially with the Saudis, because the Saudis have this whole Saudi 2030 vision thing where they're trying to get as many big events to come across to be hosted in Jeddah or Riyadh. They struck partnerships with El Clasico, the Super Coppa as well in Italy. Or the El Clasico is in the Spanish Super Cup. Yep. They host all those glorified big friendlies. They want to get, big events over to the Saudis, and don't be surprised. I'm telling you, do not be surprised if we see Newcastle United sell a home game one day to Saudi Arabia as well. If you thought the Sports Direct Arena was bad. Yeah, wait until we see Newcastle taking on Southampton in Jeddah. That's when we're going to know, okay, things are getting a little bit a little bit of NQR at the moment. But anyways, Josh, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit of culture at the moment. Let's head over to Italy because this is one of the great derbies. We're talking tradition. We're talking, passion. This is the one to look at. Arguably the best rivalry in Italian football. Roma versus Lazio. Derby della Capitale. Lazio won the first one. Roma said, well, you're not going to sweep us this time around, mate. We're going to come around and get the job done. Jose Mourinho was confident. I don't know if you saw his Instagram. He put up 2 selfies, close-ups of his face, him on the bus saying, basically, I'll get the exact phrasing up. It was him basically saying, me before the game being, overly confident about winning this game, and me afterwards. And it was basically the same photo. So he goes, when you know that you win before the match, the bus picture and the dressing room picture are very similar. So he is up at it. He was confident. He knew it. And I mean, within a minute, Roma were ahead. Tammy Abraham on the score sheet. Friend of the station, Adriano Del Monte, posted a fantastic video right outside, right in front of the Roma Ultras who were singing Tammy Abraham's name after he scored. Tammy Abraham is becoming one of the biggest figures in Roma. I read this brilliant piece before the game about how he can stamp himself as one of Roma's great strikers with a big performance in a game like this. Going up with the names like Totti and Vincenzo Montella, some of the great strikers who have come before him. And he's doing just that. A double. Lorenzo Pellegrini with one of the great free kicks you'll ever see. A 3-0 win. And Roma right now, they have not lost in the league since the start of January. They are absolutely flying at the moment under Mourinho after a really, really tense start. They were struggling. They've found their rhythm. They've found their groove. They've got their players back out in the park. And it's good to see that they're still in the hunt for top 4, which is a really good sign for them and a good way to end the season heading into that final stretch after the international break.
Legitimate question here, and I'm not just trying to stir the pot.
Yeah.
If you're Chelsea right now, would you rather have Tammy Abraham or Romelu Lukaku?
Tammy Abraham. Tammy Abraham's in better form. I mean, I argue Tammy Abraham should start for England in these next 2 friendlies they've got this weekend. He's in better form than Harry Kane. Tammy Abraham's arguably the form striker in Serie A right now. Like, he is in some incredible form, and he's confident at the moment. He's exuding confidence in everything he's doing right now. He started the season really well. He went through a lean patch, but since then, he is just reeking of a player that's just loving life right now. He made I think the one thing that's underrated in all this is English players love to stay in the comforts of being in England. You don't, prior to the last couple of years, not many English players made that move abroad. A lot love to stay in the Premier League system. We have seen these English players make that bold move to go to a different league. Tammy Abraham, Chris Smalling, Fikayo Tomori, and it has done them all the world of good by making that move. For a guy like Tomori, we know what it's like when you grow up in a city your entire life. He grew up a London boy through the Chelsea Academy. Making that move from the comforts of your own home to go to a different city, different culture, new language, everything else, it's not easy for anybody, especially a young guy like Tammy Abraham. But he has fit in like a glove. He has taken it to it like a fish in water, and he's on fire at the moment. And it's great to see. It's good to see. It's good for the England national team. It's good for his own confidence, good for his stocks, because let's be real, he was never going to get a look in at Chelsea based off what their strategy is. They had their eyes on Romelu Lukaku. He knew, I'm not going to get minutes here. I need to go somewhere else. And to be honest, I think he needs to leave the Premier League full stop. And I think this was a great move for him. He's become the guy at Roma. That's the thing as well. He's been given the keys and he has, he has just thrived. And I just love to see it because him and his best mate Fikayo over at Milan, 2 really good friends, thriving in Serie A right now. It's just a shame that they both didn't get called up for the national team. The Tomori slander is still going on from Gareth Southgate. But Tammy Abraham's getting his due reward, and I hope he takes it forward into the World Cup because he offers something different that Harry Kane doesn't. And I think that's the big thing. He's a lot more physical. He's a bit quicker than him as well. Harry Kane's a bit more of that creative kind of guy, gets in between the lines. Tammy Abraham is your number 9. He's your perfect number 9, and he's a sharpshooter in front of goal. You love to see it.
Yeah, I think his body's been a bit more reliable than Kane as well.
Yeah.
So, that might...
Continuity's a big thing.
Yes, and you mentioned English players going abroad. It's kind of counterintuitive, but at an English club, when you're one of the younger sort of early 20s players, you're more likely to get overlooked for a shiny new foreign signing, especially in an attacking position. But if you're specifically brought in by a European club to fill a spot in the team, and you haven't just come through the youth academy or signed because you're around in the Premier League, then you're actually probably more likely to get consistent minutes.
Yeah.
It's a really counterintuitive. I also think it holds the England national team in better stead if they've got players who are used to unfamiliar environments and adapting overseas. Because guess what? Most international tournaments aren't held in England.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you have to get used to playing in different environments.
Well, they lost the final on their home deck anyway, so, like that's another thing.
All right. We don't have to rehash that one.
But it's actually a good point. It probably serves for all of those big nations. Because a lot of the Italian players mainly play in Serie A, a lot of the Spanish players play in La Liga, a lot of the German players play mainly in the Bundesliga. I actually think it'd be a good thing to see more of them making that move and playing in other leagues.
I think it'd also be good to see international coaches look beyond their own shores.
Absolutely.
More often, because there's in some countries, and it's only a specific few where they view their league as the best, they have a certain myopia about their own playing overseas. And I'm not just talking about England here, which is the obvious one. Spain as well.
Yeah.
Unless you're right at the top in a Champions League level side, you tend to get overlooked.
Well, look at all those players like, Luis Alberto. We've seen Brahim Diaz. We've seen, trying to think who else from Spain has kind of been over. Sergio Canales plays at Real Betis, though. It's not a high NRI team. So, I mean, it does happen. It does happen quite a bit. And we've seen it. If we're going to take it back to England, we've seen it a lot with Fikayo Tomori. I mean, he's a better defender than Tyrone Mings. He's a better defender than Connor Cody. He's a better defender than Mark Gui. But they are all playing ahead of him at this tournament.
Can't believe Mark Gui he is.
Yeah.
Anyway.
They all got selected ahead of him. And Fikayo Tomori's arguably been the best centre-back in the league this season.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
It's a weird one.
It is strange. But, Gareth Southgate, I just don't quite see what the next evolution of that England side really is.
Well, they think that this is it for them. I mean, that this is their time to win.
I guess once you make a final, you think you're onto something, and maybe that prevents a bit of evolution. No, they don't need revolution, but I think they need to evolve the way they play.
I think Gareth Southgate needs to evolve as a coach as well, in-game coaching especially.
His adjustments, the level. I mean, throughout the entire tournament, people were calling for more of the creative players to get off the bench and off the leash and to abandon the double pivot, the safety blanket that
Rice and Phillips.
Rice and Phillips. I guess we'll have to see something different with Calvin Phillips being injured for so much of the season. But
I think it'll be interesting to see.
Rice and Henderson. We'll get back talking about. It's not going to be different.
We'll get back to Serie A in a second, but it'd just be interesting to see how Gareth Southgate handles this because there are a lot of quality creative players that are in some good form right now, and especially that Tammy Abraham, Harry Kane, discussion. Because Tammy Abraham's had a great season, but is it enough to maybe sway him away from Harry Kane?
Does it have to be at Harry Kane's expense?
No. Can he go to up top? Will he look at going a bit more direct?
As we know, the Kane sees himself as more of a number 10 these days, or halfway in between, a 9.5 if you will.
Yeah, but also as well, remember one thing, a lot of those creative players this season that he has gone to, Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford, they haven't had great seasons. I mean, Rashford's been injured. Sancho hasn't been seen as many minutes.
Terrible when he's played.
Yeah, and Bukayo Saka...
Sancho, to be fair, has been playing much better under Ralph Rangnick.
When he's been getting the minutes, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, but he's been playing most games for Rangnick.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think he deserves inclusion at this point, just based on recent form. The whole campaign hasn't exactly blown you away, and Manchester United have been poor, as we know, but Sancho has been one of the players who's stepped up and had more first-team football in Rangnick.
Well, these are the sort of attackers he's picked. These are also including the midfield options he's selected for the upcoming friendlies. So he's picked guys like Mason Mount, Conor Gallagher's gotten the selection as well, Raheem Sterling, Harry Kane, Jack Grealish, Bukayo Saka, Phil Foden, Tammy Abraham, and Emil Smith-Rowe. So there's a lot of the same kind of players, like Smith-Rowe, Mason Mount, Jack Grealish, Phil Foden, and I don't think he's going to, go to a system where none of them are playing in the starting lineup. Because it feels like he's quite set in what sort of system he wants to play. He wants to play 3-4-2-1 or 3-4-3, go really set with one striker and two creative players and two enforcers in midfield. We know Calvin Phillips has been injured, but it will be Rice and Henderson going forward. If it's not them, it'll be Jude Bellingham or it'll be James Ward-Prowse, who's also been selected. So there is a formula he's going to stick to. But that could be ultimately what could be the black mark on Gareth Southgate's England tenure if he doesn't get any success for him. Yes, they won the Nations League, but, you know, in the two big tournaments, the World Cup and the Euros, he's failed. I mean, he got them to the final, got them to the semis.
Come on.
No, I'm saying, let me rephrase, not failed, but he's failed at the big step when he's needed to get, like in those big games, against Croatia, he failed. Against Italy, how long did it take for him to make a sub against Italy?
Yeah, but you get that final to penalties, like anything can happen.
Still, though, you have Italy on the ropes. You're up 1-0 in both of these games as well, don't forget. They take an early lead in both those games.
I do have criticisms of Gareth Southgate's in-game adjustments and so forth, but you can't call it a failure. You can't call Euro 20.
I'll say it's a failure in the sense
because no one expected them to even make the final.
In a 90-minute gap, in a 90-minute block, it's a failure.
Okay.
Not in terms of the whole tour. Maybe I should be a bit more specific. In a 90-minute block, when you're looking at the actual game in isolation, it's a failure. It's a failure for any coach. 120 in both of us, including penalties. I mean, okay, including penalties, sending up Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho, and Bukayo Saka to take a penalty after they barely kicked the ball. Yeah. Again, that's just terrible coaching. We've seen it throughout history about not sending out a player to take a penalty if they don't have to. That's the preface as well. You know, if they haven't kicked the ball yet. So it's an interesting argument. But anyways, let's get back to the club football. We can go on about this sort of, you know, jargon all day. The title race, again, taking another crazy twist over the weekend into dropping points again. 1 win from 7 in the league. Going from, you know, having basically one hand on the Scudetto to now really falling to bits. A 1-1 draw against Fiorentina on the weekend. They went behind Lucas Torreira getting on the score sheet. Denzel Dumfries pulled one back, but it wasn't enough. Napoli 2-1 over Udinese. Victor Osimhen, of course, a double, rescuing a win for them. And Milan 1-0 win over Cagliari. Milan 3 points clear of Napoli. Napoli still have the goal difference on them right now, but Inter 6 points off with a game in hand. 8 games to go, Josh. Let's go bold. After the international break, it is the final stretch. Who's winning it? Because Inter's fallen right off. They might have that game in hand, but their form right now, they look gassed. Maybe the international break will help them. A lot of those guys have been selected for the international games. But do Inter have another run in them? Can Napoli snatch it, or is it looking like it could be Milan's time?
I think we've looked at the run-in before, and from memory, Milan's was very tough. Very tough.
The end, yeah. But Inter's got Juve after the international break. Atalanta play Napoli. So that could be, that could really, I wouldn't say decide it, but if Inter go 9 points behind, it could get out of reach for them.
Well, if we look at Milan's run-in now, it doesn't look as hairy as it did because Lazio
always never an easy game, though.
No, that's true.
That's that. But Milan are the best away team in the league this season.
I mean, Fiorentina aren't as good without Vlahovic, of course.
But they're a prickly opposition.
I mean, Verona could be a danger.
Hellas Verona are a very, very, very capable side.
And then Atalanta Sassuolo last 2 games.
Atalanta are Milan's bunnies, like putting it bluntly.
Okay.
No, like literally, Milan have got Atalanta worked out. And Sassuolo, though, that's the game I'm worried about. Because Sassuolo's bunnies, for
I think we're going to know whether Napoli stay in
it could be over by those last couple games.
In the next 3 weeks, Napoli have Atalanta, Fiorentina, and Roma. And Roma is suddenly in great form again. So the equation is sort of shifted in Milan's favour, I have to say. Yeah, and then after that, Empoli, Sassuolo, and Torino are not easy games as well for Napoli. It's going to be really intriguing to see whether they've got it in it. And Inter, well, Juve, Hellas Verona, they've got to play then obviously a bit of an easier game against Spezia. Roma at home, that's not going to be an easy game, but then quite an easy run home. Udinese, Empoli, Cagliari, Sampdoria. Now, they've also got to play that game in hand against Bologna as well, which hasn't been scheduled. That's also one to keep an eye on. So I think that if certain results go in Milan's favour over the next little bit, this Scudetto could be wrapped up in the last 2 or 3, with 2 or 3 games to go. I think for the neutral, they'd be hoping this goes to the final day. But I was having this conversation with a mate yesterday.
Milan are bound to drop a game. They're not going to go through and win 1-0 every single week and, defend how they have for the last few games. They've defended brilliantly and, get a win because they're still struggling in the attacking third. Like they are still, as much as Olivier Giroud hit some good form, they are still doing it. There's no consistent striker.
There's going to be a couple of draws in there.
I think
the
game that I am most worried about, there's a couple, but one that really stands out for me is the game against Genoa, because Genoa under Blessin have been really hard to beat. They have been in an incredible run of form since he's come in. They haven't lost. They have gone on, I think it's 9 or 10 games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that's 8 games. 8 games without a loss since he's taken over. They've drawn 7 and won 1, but they haven't been an easy team to beat. The game against Hellas Verona as well is not an easy one, but also there's the last couple. So it's definitely one to keep an eye on because it's not just going to be as easy as Milan now winning all last of their 8 games. But also don't forget, Juve haven't lost in the league in a while as well. I'm not ruling them out because I have seen this story all before. And if they beat Inter, there's no reason why they can't get at least back into the race. They've got
4 in a row, baby. 4 in a row.
Well, Cagliari, Bologna, Sassuolo, Venezia, Genoa, and then a tough finish against Lazio and Fiorentina. There's some big games there. I thought you were doing a verse
from the Zinedine Zidane song for a second.
Yeah.
Cagliari, Bologna, Atalanta.
Yes. But it is going to be a fun watch to see how this all plays out the next few weeks. Milan right now in some good form. We just want to say a big shout out to Fikayo Tomori and Mike Mignon yesterday. Another really sad case of racial abuse at the Cagliari home game. It's not becoming isolated incidents at these Cagliari games. It's a trend. The Serie A officials need to come down harder on them. They banned, I think it was like 3 fans for life at the last incident. But now it's getting to a point where they need to do more. And I'm going as hard as saying I honestly think Cagliari shouldn't play with fans for the rest of the season. I think that is how you got to set. You got to go hard here. And if you can't go with one game, you've got to go for the rest of the season. Make them feel it.
Yeah, and they're in a relegation battle as
exactly.
well, so that would play a big part.
Absolutely. But this has
Points
to be
deduction?
punishment. That's probably the last step.
Yeah.
In a relegation battle, if you really wanted to come down hard, you'd go there. But I think playing without fans, they'd feel it just as much, especially in a COVID period. It hit the hip pocket as well. And they're going back. The thing is as well, this in 2 weeks' time, for the first time since pre-COVID, that they'll be allowed to have 100% capacity as well.
The stadium ban also automatically solves the problem for the rest of the season and protects players who are visiting there. So I actually agree with you. I think that's a better solution. But we know time and time again, Serie A lets these teams off with a slap on the wrist.
Absolutely.
So that's one of my least favorite things about the competition, to be honest, is they don't hold these disgusting, these like they don't hold these clubs accountable for this stuff that happens on a pretty regular basis, which is a disgrace. Venezia lost 4 in a row. I don't think they're staying up.
I don't think so.
But Genoa. Yeah. Genoa could
Genoa under Blessing, man. They're going to find a way. Shout out to David Zrilic, the assistant coach down there.
It's the Zrilic effect.
They're in the hunt. They're 3 points off. I think it's a bit hard for Salernitana. They've got 2 games in hand.
I mean, they've literally just gone full armoured tortoise.
2 wins, 16 draws. 16.
You can't score against these guys. Like they decided after the 6-0 loss to Fiorentina, enough was enough.
Well, that was Shevchenko's last game as head coach, yeah.
And since then, 0-0, 0-0, 1-1, 1-1, 0-0, 0-0, 0-0, 1-0.
And finally they got the job done thanks to a Porta Nova goal.
That's just extraordinary.
I mean, it is unbelievable. Look, they've actually got an okay team. They've got guys like, Stefano Suraro, Milan Badel, guys who have been there and done that. Salvatore Sirigu in goals, who's
it may not be pretty,
massive bit of leadership.
But if they can overhaul Cagliari, given the events that we've seen, I would be
very, very happy.
Unfortunately, Venezia, as the fashion kings of the league, looks like they...
I would like to see Venezia and Genoa come up out of there and see Spezia and Cagliari go down, because Spezia are very nondescript and they always beat Milan. I want them gone. Venezia, I want them to stay up because I want those Kappa kids still in Serie A, and I want Genoa to stay up because I want more David Zrilic in Serie A and more... Actually, look, you know what? If Genoa take points off Milan, I'll probably U-turn my take and say, get them out, because I'm sick of, the armoured tortoise. But at the same time, for now at least, they're my boys. They're going to stick around for a bit longer. But anyways,
I mean, maybe Venezia would have stayed up if they'd got their kits back in stock.
Maybe.
Know? That's like their main revenue source, right? Is kit nerds around the world.
They signed Nani. I mean, Nani probably went just for the kits.
Are they trying to create artificial shortage with these things and like? Are they making money off the secondary market? I'm not sure what's going on there.
I'm really
just
not too
order
sure.
more, guys. They're always sold out on the website. I check back every month. They're always gone.
Because we want more.
We need more.
And this is a shout out to Ultra Football as well. Ultra Football, if you guys can get them in stock, I'll be there the day that they arrive.
We'll be there.
Hey, you can't mention that. Anyways, before we wrap up and we go to the European qualifiers, the title race in the Bundesliga is still hanging around. 6 points off. Bayern ahead of Dortmund right now. Bayern came away with a 4-0 win on the weekend. Dortmund drew against Cologne. It would have been a massive result for Dortmund to stay in touch if they were able to get a result. They'd only be 4 points off, but instead they're 6. So keep an eye on that one heading into the post-international break.
I didn't give my prediction, by the way. I think if it goes down to the wire, I'm leaning Napoli. But if Milan can create some separation over the next couple of weeks, I think they can do it. Even without, being particularly prolific. Inter, I'm saying it's over. It's done. They're gone. But Juve.
You think they're going to go on a run?
But Juve are going to be the battle cruiser in pursuit.
It's going to sound like literally like it's going to be like Rogue One, and it's going to be like they're Darth Vader, and Milan are basically trying to get the plans. And it's like have Darth Vader is Max Allegri just chopping through with terrible football and football terrorism.
Buonanotte, buona serata,
bang. And Milan are going to escape on the final day because Juve are going to make some mistake along the way. I don't know what it's going to be. Maybe Locatelli is like the sleeper agent as like a Milan youth player and he'll score an own goal in a big game. And it's like Mads Mikkelsen's character of, revealing
Imagine
the plans.
Tiziano,
Oh, I tell you what, I'm nervous.
Loca.
Because as much as it's dawned on me how good it would be if Juve beat Inter, it's also like counterintuitive because if Milan don't win their next game, then Juve are right back in it. So as long as we keep winning, it's okay.
You got to be supporting Juve. You got to be supporting Inter against Juve. Juve are the danger. No.
Inter's still got that game in hand. That doesn't make me comfortable.
I think they're broken. I think they're done. I think they've run out of steam. I think Liverpool was the final nail in the coffin. They should have done better in that game. They came so close, and events conspired against them. And I think you just saw their spirits dropped.
Yeah. I think the Arrigo Sacchi actually said they need to change system and go to a back four. He probably would say, let's play a sweeper as well if he had it his way. He'd go real catenaccio for the rest of the season.
Arrigo Sacchi going for a narrow 4-4-2. I'm shocked.
No, a 1-3-4-2. Play bloody Skriniar as a sweeper or play Ranocchia as a sweeper or something like that.
It would be Ranocchia.
But anyways, Milan played that.
Is Ranocchia still a thing, by the way?
He's probably good in the locker room.
Yeah.
Probably great for the morale.
Right, the Ranocchia room.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, Josh. Anyways, moving on. That was better.
I should have kept that.
Moving on to this weekend, Josh, the final round of European qualifiers. As we do know, Russia are out, so Poland are through to the next round. They'll play the winner.
Poland.
So they're through. That game will be played in June. The other game as well.
The Swedish words in the English language.
Actually, sorry, will be played in March.
The 6 Swedish words in the Polish language.
Well, we can get it up, but I probably won't be able to say it. But Poland will play the winner of Sweden or the Czech Republic next week. Scotland-Ukraine, which was supposed to be played this week, has been postponed until June for obvious reasons. So the winner of Scotland-Ukraine play the winner of Wales-Austria, who will play that. So Wales-Austria play on Friday, but that game has been postponed until June to sort out what's going on, obviously, with the Ukrainian national team.
You get that?
There you go. I didn't hear it.
Not as bad as I thought.
Yeah, well, there you go. But the big ones to keep an eye on, Josh, and I am so nervous. I knew this game has been coming for months, but now it's really dawned on me that it's here. And I said to you before the show that the 24 hours from Australia playing Japan, that game starting at 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time on Thursday night, and then the next morning at 6:45 Australian Eastern Daylight Time, Italy's playing Macedonia in that qualifier in Palermo. I am so freaking nervous.
Yeah, no one here.
You know what? Like, if they beat us, I hope they go on and make the World Cup.
Yeah.
Like, I will be so upset because I know a lot of Macedonians who will give it to me until the cows go home. So, like losing in Sweden, I don't know a Swedish person, so it didn't bother me. Actually, it did bother me, but it didn't bother me.
You haven't recovered. I don't
It's
think.
like if we had lost against
Even
England
losing
in the
the
final.
Euros didn't quite raise the battle
No,
scars.
because we still need to make the World Cup, for God's sake. Because, this is the thing. I've had Joey Lynch tell me for months that it's not if, but when Italy don't make the World Cup. I need this because I've had it on him about Italy beating them in the final. I need this. So, please, I'm begging you, Italy, don't fumble the bag. Not now. I'm genuinely panicking. I am so nervous.
We can tell.
Friday morning, you guys might not hear from me for 3 days if Italy don't win. You're lucky there's no A-League games until Sunday, but I might walk into the box on Sunday night completely disheveled. I might be a shell of myself after this. I can't have 2 missed World Cups in a row.
The tenor of your voice is raised by about an octave since we started talking about this. I'm about to have a panic attack.
No, I am panicking about this game so much. We can't lose.
Maybe I should set up some kind of countdown clock to the match.
What, like a El Chiringuito style?
Yeah.
But the good thing is for Italy, Alfie Elmas is suspended, so their best player is out, and the killer Goran Pandev has retired. And no, he's not out of retirement. So
you don't think we're going to get a surprise Goran Pandev?
Well, it would have happened by now if he would have been selected. But
I was referring to the Zealand meme.
But anyways, I think, look, in all honesty, I think Italy will beat Macedonia. They're playing it at the most hostile place possible in Palermo, which we know Palermo is freaking hostile. It's like Italy have gone, we're not going to play in the lavish stadiums in Milan or in Turin or in Rome. We're taking them to Palermo, for God's sake.
Mean streets, baby.
If it's like basically saying the England national team are not going to play at Wembley, but we're going to play at the Britannia or at Loftus Road instead. Or at Selhurst Park. They need to get a win, but we're going to make it so hard for the opposition. So if Italy win, they play the winner of Portugal or Turkey, which is not easy in itself because that game is in Lisbon or Istanbul. And I don't want to go to Istanbul, but I don't want to go to Lisbon either. This is going to be a big week, man.
It is a murderous row on the way to the World Cup.
Why couldn't Jorginho just score those penalties, man? He missed 2 penalties. 2.
How much stress can you handle in the space of 2 days? Because the Socceroos are playing Japan on Thursday night.
Well, so this is the situation. 8:10 p.m. Australia, Japan. I'm going to try and go to sleep afterwards. Keyword is try.
No sleep.
And then I'll get up. I'll watch Italy. If Italy wins, then the situation on Wednesday morning is if Australia's still alive at that point, if that game's on a dead rubber, Australia plays Saudi Arabia at 5 a.m. Italy starts, if they win, at 6:45 on the same morning.
Back to back.
This could be the most painful. That could be if Italy go through and if Australia's still alive. That could be the most painful 4 hours of I wouldn't say of my life, but of my footballing journey.
I wish I could change your camera to black and white, just for.
I am so nervous. But hey, Balotelli didn't get called up.
Oh, I can. There we go. Sad Nicholas. This is Nick if Italy lose.
Shame I can't pull up some sad music in the meantime. But anyways, Balotelli didn't get called up, so you got your way.
He
ended up being omitted for João Pedro instead. Hey, Italy's also calling up 30-year-olds for their first cap that aren't Italian. That's not causing a big uproar like it is over here. So, but anyways, look, Josh, let's leave it there.
You think it's fine if they've got a striker shortage that they turn to a foreigner?
Well, João Pedro, in all fairness, though, João Pedro has been one of the most informed forwards in Serie A for a very long time, who should have left Cagliari a very long time ago.
He's also pretty inconsistent in front of goal.
Yeah, but he can create as well.
That's true.
That's probably why he's got that creative edge, so you can play him as a 10 if need be. But anyways, I don't think he's even going to see the pitch, so I think they're going to go tried and tested with Ciro Immobile, which I really hope doesn't happen. They go to Scamacca, but anyways.
I'm kind of sad that Balotelli didn't end up making it because I thought we might might see some off-field fireworks, maybe some bathroom fireworks.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, it could have happened in Istanbul. We know with the flares there. God, no. Well, hey, he would have been playing in familiar surroundings. He's been playing in Turkey and dominating. So, anyways, before I completely blow a gasket, Josh, let's leave it there.
Yeah, I think we've got to
Let's
go. We've been going way over time.
Next
by the way.
Monday could be a really interesting show.
It could be a banner day in the history of the F&I Euro show. This could be our highest rating episode. Tune in to see Nick's mental breakdown.
It could be
slash just absolutely unbearable victory lap.
Well, no, it won't be because it will still just be half the job done.
True.
So it'll be like, yay, we're there, but like, nay, we're still got, and there could be 2 big rating shows in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, well, all I can say is stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, because whatever happens, it will be box office.
Yes, absolutely. But anyways, keep an eye as well on the F&R socials, guys. Serious note, new show coming to F&R on Monday night straight after the Euro show. We're not going to reveal exactly what it is, but it's coming. That's all I'm saying.
We might be even adding a third panelist.
Yes, absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to go Comunicado Oficial with it, but we'll keep an eye on the socials over the next few days. Big shows coming up this week. Oz Football Hour back tomorrow.
Yes, obviously we're going to be previewing Japan versus Australia on Thursday night. We're also going to be talking A-League, of course, but yeah, just Socceroos and indeed Socceroos coaches dropping like flies when it comes to the COVID situation.
Yep.
So we could see a makeshift 11, but even then Japan has had some players out as well, particularly in the forward line. So very interesting times. Very interesting times. Both sides weakened. And of course, we've got our grand final preview on Radio Dub. We're going to be talking to Ali Green from Sydney FC, and we'll try and get a victory player on as well because
We've had a real victory flavour over the last few weeks.
well, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, they just keep winning.
Yeah.
So we got to keep getting them on. The longer they survive in the finals, the more coverage they get. If they win, we might get another one, another victory player the week after.
Absolutely. It's great.
We'll confirm those guests soon, but we'll definitely be speaking to someone from Sydney FC as well.
And on Wednesday, Green Room.
No Green Room because
they're
there's a
in
clash.
action.
They will be playing. So we didn't think it was sensible to go up against the actual team playing the actual game. We thought that was a little bit foolish. So Green Room will be back next week, but we'll have the EPL show and we'll have State of Our Football Nation on Thursday nights, followed by the Lions Den.
And the Lions are not back at home this week, but next week, fresh off a big win against the Eagles. Josh, you were there on Saturday.
I was.
Up and about.
91st minute winner in a derby game. Doesn't get better than that.
Big numbers in 77, Christopher Davies, who stood up and headed the ball home.
Yes.
Nodded the ball home. You can use many different adjectives. But anyways, time for us to say goodbye. We'll be back again.
Could it be a portent of what's to come for the Macedonian national team?
Oh, don't remind me. Anyways, we'll be back again next Monday. Signing off here, Nick Tabano, Josh Parrish. Have an enjoyable week in football.
Sometimes I feel, I don't know.
Buona giornata, buona serata, buona giornata.
There's not really time to relax and take an espresso for Juventus.
You don't have to get about it, did you? You don't have to get about it, did you? Attaccare!